moving on to South Carolina versus Alabama. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about this one. So here is the question here. Was the game a game that Alabama closed, or was it a gift from South Carolina? If you watch the game, it was controlled in the beginning by Alabama. They went up 14-0, and it looked like they were hitting on all cylinders. South Carolina couldn't get their offense going, looked super out of sync. Alabama's defense was making big stops, and their offense was getting what they wanted. And then suddenly there was a shift. They closed the half much better defensively after looking like inferior at the start of the game. And then they end up getting a safety. It has some good offensive drives that led to a touchdown and a field goal. And you look up and it's a 14-12 football game. So you're saying, okay, South Carolina's back in this. They're stopping Alabama now, and they're able to move the ball a little better. So it seemed to be going South Carolina's way, momentum going South Carolina's way going into the half. And then the start of the second half was pretty much controlled by South Carolina. And here's what my takeaway was from the game. South Carolina, I felt like, got every break that you could get. And the problem was they just couldn't capitalize on them. They were put in position to win that game several times, or to really take control of that game to make it really difficult for Alabama. And they just couldn't capitalize on it. And I think that's when you're upset minded, that is the difference from having a week like Vandy did against Alabama and then having a week like South Carolina did. Because Alabama at the end of the day is still a good team and has a lot of firepower. So you kind of anticipate them like, hey guys, at some point they're going to make a run. The thing that I talked about last week with Vanderbilt was every time Alabama would make a run, Vandy would respond. Vandy was right there. Oh, you kind of similar to this Oregon-Ohio State game. It was 14-6 early in that game. Ohio State said, no. We're gonna make this a close game. We're not gonna let you run off. And so South Carolina kept being in position to pull away or really make it difficult for Alabama. The first one comes to mind. They had a chance to go up 2 scores in the fourth quarter. It was about 12 minutes or so left. They had the ball. They're up 19-14, and Sellers, quarterback for South Carolina, is just doing a simple RPO. And they fumbled the exchange. You see this happen from time to time with that RPO. They can't really decide if they want to pull it from the running back or if they want to take it themselves. And when he pulled it, he lost control of the football. Alabama gets the ball back on their side of the field and make them pay. That was the first, that just shifted the momentum because, again, South Carolina was moving that football against Alabama. You're up by 5 with a chance to go up 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Man, you really like where you are if you're able to do that. But instead they fumble. Alabama scores. They get the ball back, and they end up missing a field goal with a chance to go up by 2 with 6 minutes left. Alabama, they get the ball, go right back down the field and score a touchdown. That was another opportunity. Another one at the very end, deep pass to the end zone to Nick Harbor in the corner that they called incomplete, but on review, they saw he got his foot down. Boom. South Carolina got the touchdown they needed. Get the 2-point conversion. This is a tie football game in the fourth quarter. What happens? South Carolina can't convert on the 2-point conversion. And then they get the onside kick. They get the onside kick recovery. But what really hurt them there was that deflected pass that ended up being caught by the offensive lineman, who then takes off running and just kills clock. They have no timeouts. And again, now you're just throwing a Hail Mary that they couldn't even get to the end zone. And that ended the game. So South Carolina had every chance you could ask for. They were put into position to take the leads, pull away, make it so hard for Alabama, um, but they just couldn't finish like they needed to, and that ultimately cost them. So, was it an Alabama close or a South Carolina gift, man? I really have to say a South Carolina gift. And I don't want to discredit them because again, they still had to go and score in these in positions, and so they showed that they can put it together. But man, they just don't. They, I think the fear has been removed for Alabama. They don't look like big bad Nick Saban Alabama anymore. They look very beatable. Again, you come from a 28-point lead to Georgia taking the lead and almost winning that game, to then the next week getting upset by Vanderbilt, to again almost getting upset by South Carolina at home. And so it's kind of like this is a team that could be 3-3 right now. They have looked shaky week by week. Again, I keep saying it, that defense is not the same. They are very vulnerable, especially in that secondary. And man, scary times for Alabama coming up. They have a brutal schedule. That it's like again, you're in these close games with Vandy, end up losing to them, and then almost to South Carolina. Oh yeah, and then we have our toughest road game of the year next week against Tennessee. I mean, they are putting themselves in a tough position, and again, you get that loss there to Vandy already, and you still got Tennessee, and then a week after that you got Missouri, and then I think you get a bye week maybe, and then you got LSU. I mean, it's a brutal schedule coming up for Alabama, and they're struggling with teams that we aren't expecting, and so um, they're going to have to get a hold there, but definitely scary times for Alabama. We'll see how they pull through. We're going to find out we are in the smack dab middle of the season here. So we are about to find out a lot about these teams. We're going to find out a lot about these teams. We're in conference play. Can't hide. It's no more cupcake teams until, some at the end of the year, but, can't hide anymore. It's mano y mano. Show me who are the top 12 teams in the country. So that's Alabama. And then for South Carolina, it speaks to what I mentioned about these mid-tier teams last week. Here's the clip. These little 3-2, 2-2, middle of the road. We're not great, but we're not terrible. Those type of teams, Arkansas, like these teams give these undefeated big dogs so much trouble. Because again, one, I think part of it may be you may just come out and play the name of the team instead of playing the team itself in that specific game. Arkansas, again, is another one of those programs who haven't been competitive at all. They're an afterthought in the SEC. And when you see them come out and they're competitive and they're hanging with you and you can't really pull away and their defense is better than you thought. Kentucky, another great example. We saw what they did against Ole Miss. We saw what they almost did against Georgia. These teams are gritty. They come out with this aggression. It's again that hunter versus the hunted mentality. There it is. I mean, and I called that, hey, is this Vandy? I called that could be a challenging game there for Alabama, and I mentioned South Carolina could be a sneaky team. I've watched these teams, and I'm like, you watch Alabama, and you're like, man, they have some exposure there on defense. And sure enough, they're in another week where they have to pull away and pull a rabbit out the hat to win the game. And so South Carolina is one of those teams. If you come in there looking at their record, thinking like, oh, they're just a mediocre team. Okay. Okay. Because again, man, these defenses, especially in the SEC, are brutal. I mean, South Carolina's edge rushers, they are no joke. And so it just proves it. And I think, South Carolina offensively, they have some challenges. Obviously, they can't score as well, or with these more elite teams or more elite offenses. They are more so of a team that wants to run the football, run the option. But you play around with these teams, they can put you down. Please don't play their records. Please don't play their records, especially in the SEC. So, nonetheless, another exciting game there with South Carolina versus Alabama, and Alabama comes out victorious